Allah is so powerful, He doesn't have to become visible in how He exerts His power. لطيف لما يشاء. He's subtle in how He does things, delicate in how He does things, nearly unnoticed in how He does things. You know, in some things it's very obvious, and some things it's very delicate and invisible, and that's actually one of the great manifestations of the might of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, monuments and wealth. You know, Allah says about Himself, Allah says, كَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. We wanted to show Ibrahim alayhi salam the symbols of Allah's kingdom. Show him the signs of Allah's kingdom. Allah asked the question to the disbelievers, أَمْ لَهُمْ نَصِيبٌ مِّنَ الْمُلْكِ. Do they have any signs of their empire? I'd like to see what portion of the empire do they have? What control do they have? And if they had something, they wouldn't give it to anybody else. I was also thinking about how symbols of kingdoms are really important. You remember the story of Yusuf alayhi salam when the cup was taken? Why was the cup important? It could have been any cup, like from a water cooler, wouldn't have been a problem. It was the king's cup. It was Suwa' al-Malik. Nafqidu Suwa' al-Malik. Because now that represents, you know, something very high value because it's associated with the kingdom. So, you know why this is an important thing for Quran students? The cup is a symbol of the kingdom, which is what gives it a lot of value, isn't it? Now, that means the word for symbol in Arabic is ayah. I'll say that again. The word for symbol is what? Ayah. So it has value because it's an ayah of the kingdom. What does Allah say is an ayah in the Quran? History is an ayah. The mountain is an ayah. The sky is an ayah. The animal is an ayah. My body is an ayah. What's going on inside my chest is an ayah. All lived experience is a set of what? Ayat. And each one of them becomes valuable because they are ayat of the king. So there are two kinds of ayat in the Quran. There are ayat all around us and there are ayat of His revelation. But they both they are valuable because they are ayat of the king. Just like the king of the cup of the king in the surah. Allah says, قُلْ لَوْ أَنْتُمْ تَمْلِكُونَ خَزَائِنَ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّي لَأَمْسَكْتُمْ خَشْيَةَ الْإِنفَاقِ. If you owned the treasures of Allah's rahmah, if you had any authority over them, you would have held them back. Meaning Allah's kingdom is so vast. You know, when you see a prosperous kingdom, everybody's living well. You know, some nations in the world are so wealthy that they just give money to just everybody, just wealth upon wealth. Nobody's poor. And everybody's living large because the kingdom has just too much to give. And they just give and give and give, right? Some small nations in the world that have massive natural resources and things like that, they do that, right? So the idea is a kingdom that has the ability to give is more generous. And just in the way that Allah provides rizq to all of His creation is a manifestation of Allah's kingdom. Okay. It's also interesting, again, symbols of kingdom. I'm highlighting this because it's one of the most important things that tell us about a kingdom. Allah even mentions a woman who was a queen. Who was that? Saba, Shiva. What does He say about her? Inni wajadtu imra'atan tamlikuhum. I found a woman that rules over them. You know, and what did He say about her? He said, وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَلَهَا عَرْشٌ عَظِيمٌ. She has all kinds of things and she has a great throne. What was the symbol of her kingdom? So you notice a theme now. In the Quran, when Allah mentions kingdom, one of the things you notice about kingdoms are its symbols, the marks of that kingdom. Okay, the right to rule. Who is the rightful king? In the story of Talut and Jalut, the Israelites came to their prophet and said, we need a king because we need to fight in the path of Allah. Who will be the rightful king? Their prophet told them, Inna ayata mulkihi an ya'tiyakum at-tabutu fihi sakinatun min rabbikum. The sign of him being the legitimate king is this cart will come back. That's a long story, but it's a really fun story actually in Jewish history that Allah refers to in the Quran, because the Quran is actually very full of Jewish history. There's lots of accounts of Jewish history in the Quran, and there's a lot of interplay between the Old Testament and the Quran, right? So, but anyway, I won't go there, but I will tell you one thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like I told you, kings all often have to claim why they are the rightful king. And they have to be declared the rightful king. And there has to be some kind of inauguration ceremony that makes it official that this is the rightful king. You understand? And if that doesn't happen, then they haven't earned their right to the throne. Or if somebody challenges their right to the throne. Is there anyone that's going to challenge Allah's right to His arsh? Allah says, فَتَعَالَ اللَّهُ الْمَلِكُ الْحَقُّ. How great, how high Allah is, the rightful king. Meaning, originally Allah has the ultimate right of kingdom. He didn't get it from somewhere and no one can take it from Him. That is originally His. Then of course, another piece of His important symbolism that has to do with kingship is the history of a kingdom. Like, for example, a great empire always talks about its monuments and what they did in the past and their victories and their great ancestors and all that kind of stuff, right? وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ مُلْكًا عَظِيمًا. Allah says, we had given them great empire. This idea of reference to going back. Every nation teaches their children about its history. The empire must teach about the history because they have to know what greatness they came from, what they belong to. And of course, every nation tries to tell their children and their next generations a soft version of their history, right? A stronger version of, even if they have bad chapters in their history or embarrassing moments in their history or losses in their history, they'll try to cover that part and highlight the juicy good parts in their history. So you get the history you learn in school. Doesn't matter which country you come from. The history you learn from in school is different from actual history because it's more propaganda than history, actually, right? But history is a really important part of understanding kingdom. Of course, has Allah in the Quran described the history of His kingdom? He has, actually, from the very beginning. How He created the skies and the earth, how He brought Adam alayhi salam to this world, and how He has ruled over humanity from the beginning, and it's centralized power. A kingdom cannot be considered a kingdom if power isn't centralized. And of course, Allah mentions بِيَدِهِ مَلَكُوتُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. In His hand alone is the kingdom of everything. Its ability to protect those in its realm. I love this ayah. Actually, this is all one ayah. How can you be a kingdom if you can't protect your people? You can't. وَهُوَ يُجِيبُ. He's the one who offers protection. And then, how can you protect your people? Not only should you be able to protect your people, when you go after the enemy cannot protect themselves. وَلَا يُجَارُ عَلَيْهِ. And when this kingdom attacks, nobody can fight back. They can't withstand. The ability to put down rebellion. Like, in the case of Dhul Qarnayn, who was a king, in his story, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that when he saw people that he was going to rule, he said, whoever does wrong, we're going to punish them. We're going to deal with them, Allah Himself then describes Himself how He deals with rebellions. أَمْ لَهُمْ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فَلْيَرْتَقُوا فِي الْأَسْبَابِ. Do they own the kingdom of the skies and the earth and whatever's in between? Are they going to try to climb up through the ranks of the skies? جُنْدٌ مَا هُنَالِكَ مَهْزُومٌ مِّنَ الْأَحْزَابِ. How many armies have there been that I've already annihilated of people who thought that they can compete with me? Like, Allah has put down rebellions in history before. We call them ruins of ancient nations, right? That's Allah putting down rebellions. The ability to take care of its subjects, like سَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا. Allah says, كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي. You know the ayah? كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. Every day everybody's asking Him for something. يَسْأَلُهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. This very imagery of the king. The king used to have a court and people used to walk in, oh, great king, I haven't had a chicken sandwich for 5 days, please give me a chicken sandwich. And they would come and beg the king, and the king would give them this land and give them this chicken sandwich, or whatever He'd give them. People come and beg the king and the king gives. And then the king is running out of money. He's running out, the budget is bad. Now the king is not giving, the king is taking. He's like, oh, collect tax. We already collected tax. Collect tax again. Change the season. Collect the tax again. Take more from the people. So actually, people think the king is the one that gives. In this world, the king does mostly what? Taking. The king does more taking than giving. Allah says in the Quran, He says about Himself, يَسْأَلُهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Everyone in the skies and the earth is constantly begging Him. My heart is begging Him for the next beat. My eyes are begging him for the next moment of moisture in the eyes so they don't dry up. My veins are begging him to remain, to keep blood coursing through them. Every cell is begging him. Every atom is begging him for its existence. Constantly begging across all of existence. And every day he's responding to those needs. كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. So this is the ability of him to take care of his subjects. But of course, a kingdom is known by its laws. Any empire, any government is known by its unique laws. Like, I don't get enough of mentioning this example because I'm traumatized by the example. I went to Singapore one time, and Singapore is a really interesting country. You can't chew gum in Singapore on the street. You get arrested. Yeah, can't chew gum. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay. Anyway, so what happened was, it was summer. It was very moist. So I had some bug spray. You know the bug spray? I had a little bit of bug spray with me, and a cream. And when we landed the plane in Singapore, the flight attendant that says you can take your seatbelt off, blah 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 blah. And welcome to Singapore. If you are found in possession of any illegal drugs, you will be given the death penalty. Enjoy your stay in Singapore. I took my bug spray. There was one of my employees was working with me. I was like, "You carry this." A kingdom is known by its what? Laws. A government is known by its laws, its unique laws. Right? Does Allah also give us laws? Yeah. And a king, like even the story of kingdoms in the Quran, like Yusuf alayhi salam he was a minister, but he wasn't the king. He wasn't the king, so he wanted to keep his brother. But his brother didn't have the proper paperwork. He didn't have a visa for the kingdom. He didn't have any citizenship or anything. He was actually he was visitor visa, refugee status. So he couldn't keep him. So he had to come up with a way of getting him arrested. And Allah says, "Ma kana Allahu liya'khudhahu fi din al-malik." There was no way for him to keep him in the law of the king, because according to the law, he couldn't keep his brother, right? But the law is not being made by Yusuf alayhi salam. The law is being made by who? The king. That's the higher authority. Kings also engage in war. Kingdoms engage in war. And when they engage in war, Sheba makes a commentary about kings and what they do. She says, إِنَّ الْمُلُوكَ إِذَا دَخَلُوا قَرْيَةً أَفْسَدُوهَا. When kings come into a town, they violate that town. وَجَعَلُوا أَعِزَّهَا أَعِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً. And they take the noble people of that town and humiliate them. They do that. In fact, they engage in oppression, basically. Allah, the King of Kings, He also does war. فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. He does war, but He never goes after anyone who is not what? Zalim. He's never, the only people, هَلْ يُهْلَكُ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Nobody, is anyone going to be destroyed except the wrongdoers? Except the criminals? No one but the criminals. When kings take over, do only criminals get killed, or civilians, standby, innocent people? Everybody gets killed. In fact, if you were loyal to the previous government, you get killed. Rasulullah ﷺ takes over Makkah. What's the policy? Kill everyone? Kill all the people who fought you at Badr? If you meet someone who met you in battle before, take their head off? Is that the policy? No. I will say to you what my brother Yusuf said to his brethren. لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. No harm will come on you today. Allah is a different kind of king. And He sends His Messenger ﷺ to execute Allah's style of kingdom. Not the style of kingdom that happens in the earth, but a heavenly kingdom. Okay? Anyway, so I'm gonna have to stop here. There's so much to do. But I will leave you with one juicy thing, because I can do the juicy stuff. The next name of Allah we're gonna study is what? Al-Quddus. Al-Quddus has two layers of study. The two layers of study are, what does the word mean in Arabic and how was it used in the Arabic language, and then how is it used in the Quran? So Arabic and the Quran, that's one layer of study. But the other layer of study is actually, this word is very important in biblical studies. So in the study of the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, this word is really, really important. And we're going to have to look at why it was important to them also. Why is it important to study that or know that? Because the Quran is actually speaking to multiple audiences. And one of its audiences is actually Jewish scholarship. But you may not know that, now you know. One of the direct audiences of the Quran is who? Not just the regular Jews even. Jewish scholarship. It was actually communicating with them directly. And a lot of the language in the Quran, we understand it from the Muslim perspective, but when they heard it from a background they already had. You understand? So if we understand the background that they had and then hear what the Quran is saying, it gives us deeper perspective on what's being said. But since we talked about politics today, I will leave you with the following concept. In kingdoms in the world, there's always been this idea that when a king takes power, that he must have done something wrong to make that happen. He must have killed somebody. He must have bribed. There's some corruption behind the scenes, because you don't move up unless you get your hands dirty. You have to have some blood on your hands to get there, right? Either you came and you assassinated the current king and you took power, that way you seized power, or you tried to climb up the ranks by way of treachery and lying and cheating and scheming, basically politics, right? And that's how you made it all the way to becoming kings. Scheming until you get to the top. So when you think of people with power, you think of corruption. It's been the history of the world, right? So power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? That's always been the history of the world. So what? And kings know that, rulers know that. So what they do then is they say, well, we can't keep our power if everybody thinks we're corrupt, because eventually people will rebel. They're not going to stay under our government. We have to find a way of making ourselves look good, no matter how dirty we are. So kings, since ancient times, came up with a formula. We are going to use religion to make ourselves look good. So in ancient Egypt, they're going to have the priests and the monks and the sages. They're going to say the gods have told us this is the king. And since the people follow the religion, now it's their religious obligation to acknowledge the king. The Roman Empire, once it adopts Christianity, the Catholic Church is going to endorse the king. The Pope has an awkward conversation at the inaugural ceremony that you may have seen in the United Kingdom recently. Who's becoming loyal to who? It's a little confusing. But the idea is, this is a kingdom that is endorsed by God himself through the church, or through the priesthood, or through the temple, right? This happened in ancient Indian, kingdoms, Buddhist kingdoms, right? The Chinese emperors, they'll have some sages or somebody that acknowledges them, endorses them, because they get the religious people that follow the religious leadership. When the religious leadership endorses the king, then it becomes the religious thing to do to follow the king. And then in many of these kingdoms, they have prayers for the ruler. They'll pray for the ruler. God save the queen, God save the king, right? They'll have those kinds of things. So what happens is, there's the world of politics and there's the world of religion. And the religious people, they're considered holy. I'll say that again. They're considered what? Holy. And the word for holy people is muqaddas. The word is what? Al-Muqaddas. So kingdoms stay stable because they use the Muqaddas class to declare themselves pure. Because they themselves are corrupt, they need the Muqaddas class to become legitimate. You understand? And these Muqaddas class, these sacred people, these holy people, these saints, these people, they're actually also behind the scenes. What did they say? Hey, we're going to endorse you, but we're going to need a sizable donation, fi sabili, fi sabili us. You understand? Behind the scenes, it's a backdoor deal. So actually, it's not just one is corrupt. The truth is what? Both of them are corrupt. What is this surah going to do? It's actually going to highlight the corruption on the Muqaddas side. It's going to do that too. But what is Allah telling us by these two names together? Al-Malik, Al-Quddus. Allah is the ultimate king. Human beings, when they think of a king, they think of someone who is dirty, corrupt. And then they need to be cleansed by some other religious entity. And Allah says, no. Allah is ultimate king and Allah is ultimately pure, all in one. And what did that teach the Muslims in their understanding of the world? It taught them that in this religion, it's not that is a different world and this is a different world. This is these people, these muqaddas people, these holy people. They stay inside the monastery. They worship and pray. They think about God and the angels and heaven and hell, but they don't know what's happening in the real world. They don't know matters of government. They just know matters of God. Right? That's the muqaddas class. And then the kings know the matters of politics and what's really happening in the world. Right? So these are the pure people, and these are the people of the samawat, and these are the people of al-ard. You see? يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ الْمَلِكِ الْقُدُّوسِ. It's incredible. Like how everything is tying together now, and Allah is teaching us actually in this religion to become holier, to become pure. It doesn't mean you don't know what's happening in the real world. And just because you're engaged in politics and the real world doesn't mean you have to become dirty. Both of those things coexist because our God is both Al-Malik and Al-Quddus, all in one. You know this idea, leave to God what is to God, leave to Caesar what is to Caesar? Nuh-uh. Allah is Al-Malik and Al-Quddus, you see? So it's these few words, they're so profound in the social philosophy, the political philosophy, the outlook that it creates, and it makes sophisticated believers. Now these people are revolutionary. Every religion before this basically used religion as a tool to advance power, the holy right, the divine right of kings. And the Quran comes along and says, no, purity only belongs to Allah, and absolute rule only belongs to Allah. Everyone besides him is going to be imperfect. Everyone is going to be imperfect. SubhanAllah. Al-Malik al-Quddus. I hope you guys enjoyed that video clip. My team and I have been working tirelessly to try to create as many resources for Muslims to give them first steps in understanding the Quran all the way to the point where they can have a deep, profound understanding of the Quran. We are students of the Quran ourselves, and we want you to be students of the Quran alongside us. Join us for this journey on BayyinaTV.com, where thousands of hours of work have already been put in. And don't be intimidated, it's step by step by step, so you can make learning the Quran a part of your lifestyle. There's lots of stuff available on YouTube, but it's all over the place. If you want an organized approach to studying the Quran beginning to end for yourself, your kids, your family, and even among peers, that would be the way to go. Sign up for BayyinaTV.com.